Hi, Ellie here from the Dark Imp. So I'm doing one of my fortnightly games in development sessions where you get to look at a game that I'm working on at the moment that has been in development sometimes for a little while, that's been working on for a week and sometimes for a bit longer. So this is a game that I've been working on for a little bit longer. It's been on the shelf for a while because it's pretty much ready to go to the graphic designers and artists. But I thought I'd show you. And this one's quite interesting because it started off as a much more complicated game. It's called Throw Down Your Coats. And the idea is that each player is a sort of lord or lady in medieval Britain. And of course, they are at the centre of this sort of class system, and they are trying to increase their influence across the land. They've got a house, they're building more, and they're kind of constructing monuments to themselves. They don't want to sully their shoes on the muddy on the muddy roads, so they have a variety of serfs that come or peasants that come and lay down their coats in front of them so they can walk on them. So they will only move if there are coats to walk on. And that was the idea behind the whole game, really. So we have this sort of restricted movement system that's quite interesting. The more followers you have, the more influence you have, the more followers you get. The more followers you have, the more coats you have to lay paths in order to walk. So the greater your range of movement will be in a single turn. So now when I created this game to start with, it was the same in terms of the movement, but there were far more extra bits to it. So, instead, in this latest version, you build houses and you build monuments, and you score based on your monuments, which I'll show you in a minute. In previous versions, you also put cattle in the fields. You also had to build water pumps. You had to build pubs and police stations and all sorts of things, and there was a lot of balancing going on between these things. But actually, when it was play tested, a friend of mine said, okay, you need to get rid of everything except the movement. The movement here is the thing that's really interesting and the thing that adds something different that other games don't have. So get rid of everything else. And of course, there'd been a huge amount of work going into creating all these other bits, all these tokens that you could put on your board. So I binned all of that and I concentrated on the essence of the game, which is this movement. And I worked on ways to increase the interaction between the players, because this movement around the board, which I'll show you in a minute, forces, you can block people, you can force people into different places, and there's a lot of, you're encouraged to go closer to other players, but you don't want to be too close because you might get boxed in. So this kind of interaction combined with the movement makes this game something that I'm actually really proud of and quite excited about when it's going to come out, which will probably be next year. So keep your eyes peeled. So let's have a closer look at the game. So this is Throw Down Your Coats. Now, Throw Down Your Coats is based on this 3x3 grid of tiles. So each of the tiles has got this pattern on, and it's the same on every single tile, but some of the tiles have been rotated, and you're going to put it out randomly. Each time you place the game out, you're going to place the tiles out randomly. All you need to do is make sure that there is a pathway from each tile to the next. There may be bits that don't connect, but there is at least one pathway from each tile to the next one. Okay, so you get this sort of different setup each time. Now, in this version of the game that we're looking at here, there are 4 players. And they start in the 4 corners of the board. Each player starts with 4 followers. So these are the followers, these meeples. Of course, when we actually do this, these will be imps, the imples, as we call them. And each player in reverse, so you nominate the starting player. Oops, we've lost a follower. You nominate the starting player, and then in reverse order, players select where their first house is going to be. So this is a house here, and the player puts their lord, which at the moment is a button, on top of the house. So these are all prototype components, as you would expect. And then they put their followers in the square next to it. So the houses always go on the grass, and the followers always stay on the road. The coats always stay on the road. So everybody's got a house, one in each of the four corners of the board. And then you put your followers next to it. Now, on your turn, there are 3 stages that you're going to follow. The first thing you're going to do is that your followers will move. So they're going to throw down their coats. So, for example, if it's the yellow player's turn, they can choose where they're going to put their followers. And they might choose, so each follower goes on a separate square. And they can choose to, they always stay on the road, so you can choose where to put them. Could put them here, or I could have chosen to put them here, or I could have chosen to branch them out. But as you'll see, there's not a lot of point in doing that. So you want to get as far as you can, right? So if I choose to put them here, for example, that's fine. In this instance, we're going to come down this way towards here. So that's the first thing. The followers move. You decide where the coats are going, and then the lord moves. Now the lord usually is on top of one follower. Right at the beginning of the game, it starts in the house. The lord can move on his own people as far as he wants, and he can stop on any of the coats. So, but he can't do. He can only move once in his turn. So, you're going to move the followers, and then you're going to move the nobleman or the lord or the lady. So in this turn, I'm going to choose to move the nobleman here. And then the third phase is construction. Now you can choose to build in any green grass square next to where the nobleman has stopped. So if the nobleman stops here, there's only one grass square adjacent, and it's got to be orthogonally adjacent. It can't be diagonal. It's got to be orthogonal. So this square is not okay because it's diagonal. This is the only square that this player could build in right now. If the player had stopped here, the player could build either in this square or in this square because they're both adjacent. They're going to stop here and build here. Now each player has a supply of houses. They have 15 houses. And monuments. The monuments at the moment look the same, but they've got a star on them. And this is a limited supply. Once you've built your houses, you don't have any more, and that's really critical in the game. So, going to build a house there, and then the next player moves. So those are the things that happen. Oh, when you built a house, every time you build a house, you get to claim some influence. Now, each player has one of these kind of player boards. And there are 3 different ways to score influence. The pieces are a slightly bit fiddly in this prototype version. You can either score influence for each of your own houses on the same tile, including the one you just put down. So if I just put down here, I could only score 1 because I have no other houses in the same tile. If I'd have stayed here and built here, that would have scored me 2 because I have another one of my own houses in this tile. It's always got to do with on this tile, to do with endgame scoring and to do with influence scoring. It's always got to do with how many people are on one tile. So that would have given me 2 influence if I'd have built a house there, but I chose to build it here. And I get 1 influence, so I move my counter up. When I get to 10 influence, I'm going to get another follower, and then that gets added to my train of people, and next time I move, I can move that one as well. That means I can get further. If I had built here instead, I actually could have chosen to look at the other houses that do not belong to me in the same square, in the same tile. This is a neutral house. This is this white thing, and actually it would be like a white block on looking like all the other houses, but at the moment it's not. This white house is a neutral house. That means that I could score 2 points for all of my opponent's houses in the same tile that I'm building on, instead of counting 1 point for each of my own. So if I'd have built that, it would have given me 2 points for the neutral house. So in that case, I would get the same amount. Now, if there is a monument on a tile where I'm building, I get 3 points for each monument on the tile, regardless of whose monument it is. So what I'm trying to do is get this influence up so that I can get more people, get more people, get more people. Every time I go up another 10, I get another person until I've got my maximum, which will be 10 people. And then I've got this whole string of coats that I can move on top of. So we'll just move this out of the way. So anyway, we didn't build it there, we built it over here. Now it's the next person's turn. They're going to move their coats there. Oh, do you know what? He's going to come over here and say hello. So he's going to move, oops, that one's got to stay there, got to move his person. So you can always, you always have to, you can't ever move the person with the lord on, with the nobleman on, and you must always connect to where the nobleman is. So the nobleman can go in houses, though there's not a lot of point. It's just where he starts at the beginning. If we had decided to use this as the exit for the house, then he could have got a bit further. So maybe we'll do that. Put the nobleman here. And now he can build a house here, and he's going to get 2 points for it, 2 influence for it, not endgame scoring, 2 influence, because there's 1 house belonging to somebody else in the same tile. So he's going to score 2 influence. Now it's the next player's turn, and they're going to choose to move in here. In fact, they're not going to choose to do that. They're going to choose to move around in their own square a bit and build another house. In fact, they're going to build a monument. Now, you can build a monument. I don't think you can see this. Maybe I'll build it somewhere slightly different. He's going to build a monument here, which is in the same tile as where he's already got a house. Now, you can only build a monument if you already have a house in that tile, and if there's already a house owned by somebody else in that tile. Monuments are the thing that give you points at the end of the game, so you want to put them out around the board. If you end up at the end of the game with not all of your monuments out, you're going to score fewer points. And the game ends when the first player has put all 5 of their monuments out on the board. So you may end up very likely with fewer than 5 out. But you want to get your monuments out because that's how you score points at the end of the game. So you're allowed to put your monument out if you have already built a house in that square and there is already at least 1 house owned by somebody else. Again, this is a neutral house. So we're going to do that. Now it's fine. The Lord's going to stay there. Even though there's a coat further on, it doesn't matter. The Lord can stop wherever he wants. Okay. And then we've got this one, and he's going to decide to go up. In fact, he's going to decide to go here. Oh, he can't go there because he's not connected. He's going to decide to go here. And he's going to build 2 things. He's going to build a monument. He's going to build a house here and then a house here. So he's got 2 houses in this square here. So now he's got 3 houses out, no monuments. Remember, if you've got green on either side, you can build as much as you want. So if you've got 3 green squares, so if he ended up here, if he managed to end up here, he would have 1, 2, 3 green squares. So you can build on a different tile as long as it's adjacent to the road that you're on. And then we come round again, and the yellow one's going to move. Now, the yellow one is slightly stuck here because the pink has blocked its route and he can't go any further. He can't go up here. There's no road to go up here. He could just move here. He could move on to this one and he could build something here and here, but he might not want to do that. In fact, he's decided he's probably going to say, oh, bother, I can't go anywhere. I'm really stuck. I'm going to move down here. I'm going to build some other things. So he hasn't been able to move any followers because he needs to move his lord, and he was planning to keep snaking this way, but the pinks come. So we're going to go here, and he's going to build a monument in this tile. So this was his home tile. He's already got a house there, and there's already a house of a different colour. So he'd get 3 influence for that, Sorry, he wouldn't get any influence for that because it's building a monument. That counts for endgame scoring. And then he's going to build a house. And then he counts the house's influence. He can count these 3 points. So remember, there's 3 different ways to score influence. It's a little bit confusing without the aid memoir in front of you. But what you're trying to do, of course, is to get more influence, to get more people around the board, but ultimately to get these monuments in the highest scoring positions. And now what you can see is that the pink can also not move any of his people because this coat is blocking. Now the pink lord can travel onto the yellow coats, but always at the end of his turn has to retreat to the last pink coat. So he could do something like this. For example, he could choose to move the pink coats here if he decided he wanted to come out here next time, but then move on to the yellow coats and build another house, or indeed maybe a monument on the yellow, next to the yellow coat. And then he's going to retreat back to the nearest pink coat. So it's useful. You can use, when you get blocked, you can use it to travel on, and then you always have to travel back to your own people. Okay, then you carry on around and you're going to move. This one's going to move up here. The Lord moves, and then he's going to build his own house and build a monument. And then you see it's going to, you're going to keep going like this. So maybe the green one will do this to block the blue one a little bit, and build a house here. And I can't build anything else. That's a bit, it's going to move there. I can't really build anything else. That's a little bit rubbish. So you get these points at which you're meeting and then going away from each other. So and the reason that you want to meet is because at the end of the game, this is how the monuments score, okay? You score for each of your colour monuments, you score the number of other houses, the number of your own houses there are in that, of your own colour in that square. So at the moment, there's one pink house in this square with this monument. So this monument would be worth 1 point. But to make this monument worth 1 point, it must also have the house that you have balanced by a house of a different colour. So for every pair of houses, a pair being one of your own and one of someone else's, anyone else's, you get 1 point. If you have a monument in a square and a house in a square, but nobody else has any other houses, then that's going to be worth nothing at all. So let me just move it slightly closer here. Here we go. Right. Let me show you some possible outcomes here. This monument at the moment would score, and if we just make sure you can just see that tile on its own. So we're looking at the tile, we're scoring the tile on its own. This monument on its own would be worth nothing at the moment. There's one pink one, but no houses of any other colour. If another house is there, then this monument is worth 1 point. If there's another pink house, this monument's still worth 1 point because there's only one other colour house. Each of your own houses must be matched by a different colour. If there's another house, maybe a green one, then now it's worth 2 points. So you could have a blue house as well. It's still only worth 2 points because you've only got 2 of your own colour houses. But if you build a third somewhere, then your monument is going to be worth 3 points. So you can see that you are rewarded for building houses where other people have got their houses. And you're rewarded for building multiple houses in the same field. But what you really want to make sure is that you're not wasting your monuments in fields that nobody else is going to come and build in. So there's this real tension between, I've only got these 5 monuments and I don't want to have any of them left in my hand at the end of the game. I need to get them out. But also I don't want them counting for nothing. So I have to make sure I place my monuments in places where other people might come and build houses. I can't block people out to the extent that they can't build houses because then my things won't score. So you want to block people because there's limited space. and you want to, the ideal situation is that you've got like 4 of your own houses in a space, and there are 4 other houses in a space, and nobody's really scoring off monuments apart from you. That's the ideal. But it's difficult to get to that point. You have to encourage other people to come there. So you have to sometimes you have to put monuments down before anything else has gone there, to encourage other people to come and build their houses near your houses, and then that will rack up your points. So there's this real tension about, what do I put down when? Am I going to stake my claim to this corner and put down monuments and houses and hope that will attract other people to come and also build there? Or am I going to wait and see what happens and where other people put things and try and get into those areas? So there's this lovely kind of tension between people. The more influence you get, so you have to build, you can't hold back too much, because you won't have enough influence. You get influence by building houses, and when you get influence, you get more people, more followers, so you get greater movement. You can go from one side to the other in much more ease, and you can block people more easily. So there's this lovely tension, and it works really well as kind of interaction between people. You notice there are some of the tiles have stars on them, and those squares, if you build a monument there, you're going to get an extra point. So there's competition for those places. And in previous iterations of this game, it's worked so that everyone kind of rushes to the middle. So having these neutral houses at the start in the corners means that that you can start building monuments from your first turn, that there's a real chance that you can start getting points immediately. And that encourages people to go to each other. So it started with very little interaction and a lot of faff and lots of cows and water pumps and police stations and pubs and all kinds of things. And it's ended up with being very focused on the movement and the interaction and how you're going to score points at the end of the game. Your influence doesn't score you anything at the end of the game, unless it's a tiebreaker, in which case the person with the most influence wins. So that's Throw Down Your Coats, probably coming out at some point in 2021. So watch this space.